And today I was coming to speak a little bit. You guys forgive me, there's a dog park here, so I hope dogs don't act up on this video, because the last time y'all was giving me hell about it. But if they do, I will get out of the way and get to a quiet space. But yes, this is Find Your Free, and today I want to talk a little bit about what's coming down the line. And this video is sparked and triggered by some conversations I had to, but also a video I seen of a young brother in Africa, because a lot of the people that are really ringing the alarm about what's coming down the pipeline are on the continent right now, because they are able to see it, whether they're seeing it in their spiritual eye or they're seeing it just because they're, studying and researching and paying attention to things. But a lot of people are bringing the truth forward all over the globe, really, right now. So for those who aren't aware or don't know, they have some stuff in the wings that they're working on, and we're talking about the governments of the world to do potentially like a next lockdown, similar to the one that we dealt with a few years, that will catapult us into them trying to implement this digital kind of lockdown situation where everyone has to have, all of their identification is digitalized, all of their biometrics are digitalized and are on file, wherever they're at, and just everything. So basically, they've been working on this, but the implementation of it on a global scale is coming, and what that could potentially mean for those of us, especially that are in city and urban environments, is that they will be implementing these 15-minute smart cities where these are really tightly controlled urban areas that will be impossible for you to go from point to point. And with them saying that it's because they want to save fuel, and because of carbon emissions and things like that, there will be a lot of controlling of your ability to move around, a lot of controlling of how you spend your money, a lot of control over what you're allowed to do. So we're talking about full-on control, enslavement. And this is something that, from what can be seen, is going to be coming down the pipeline real soon. So they're preparing the ground for it right now. And so, with me discussing mostly on this channel things related to travel, I live abroad with my kids. I've been out of the U.S. for over 7-8 years now. And before that, I was barely there anyway. I was back and forth. So, I'm kind of, my focus is helping people, figure out where they want to go in the world, and even, providing services around that. And so for me, there are some places that may opt out and will be considered safe zones for those of us who don't want to participate in this global digital mess, at least for a time, right? There are countries like that, but those countries would be more along the lines of, countries in Africa that aren't very technologically advanced, you know what I mean, that don't have the infrastructure in place yet. We're talking about, countries like Ethiopia, which is like a country that exists in the past in a certain type of way. We're talking about countries that might not be that attractive to move to for, someone coming from the West. Or you also have some countries in Europe that are still using cash, very cash-based societies. They haven't jumped on the bandwagon of all of the advancements. A lot of any of the protesting and complaining about some of these very quick upgrades and digitalization of everything have been coming from European countries. But countries in Europe that are definitely kind of living back some years and not as advanced would be ones like Albania, ones in, kind of in the Balkans. These are countries to be looking at if you know for a fact you and your family are not going to want to stay in the U.S. and just ground down on some land somewhere, and you're thinking you want to leave the U.S. and go outside and just maybe be able to exist without having to be looped into this big matrix system in every way. These are the type of places you need to be looking into. It's not going to be your typical normal, I'm going to Mexico, I'm going to Portugal, because all of these places are going to be compliant. They're going to comply, just like they all complied with the big scam of 2020. That was an ongoing scam for years that everybody really, really put so much of their emotional energy into, like it was a real thing. And it was a scam the whole time. I knew it. And so, and not only it was a very dangerous scam. Look how many people died, not for what you think they died from, and look how many people have died since because they didn't have the sense to not, allow themselves to be turned into some kind of, lab rat, basically. So here we are, looking at a potential another lockdown. And so for, folks that are looking for places to go right now, I'm in Brazil. I don't even trust here all the way because I understand that Brazil, as amazing as it is, as we all rant about how great it is, because it really is some of the best quality of living I've ever had, it also is a place that's very compliant with things. Like if anything is going on, if any, when they brought the whole COVID thing here back in 2020, it took a while. Like Brazil didn't jump on the bandwagon, so nothing was really implemented out the gate. But over time, as we went into like 2021 and stuff, they jumped on that bandwagon so quick and had everybody shot it up so quick that it was like you couldn't even, it was amazing how fast they moved. So Brazil is the type of place that can organize bureaucracy really quick and get shit done if they want to. And so that is scary to me. And so for me, I don't see this as necessarily the perfect selection of a place, except if you have land out in the country, you're willing to go or ready to go out in the countryside and get on that land and start to grow things and focus in on, just homesteading to your best of your ability. Homesteading is not easy. I've lived on land in different places, and I have a background farming and things like that. But I can tell you from what I've seen, homesteading is not easy, but it may be the direction that a lot of us are going to have to go, at this time. Some of the things that I suggest is that if you are somewhere like in the U.S. and you're in the cities, if you're going to just stay close to home, try to get you something outside of the city as much as you can outside of towns, and just start saving seeds. Gather your seeds, get your seeds together. If you have space to plant trees, apple trees, fruit trees, if you have a place to actually put in a dirt garden and bust up some earth and, create a garden space, do that. Prepare the space. Just at least start getting ready and put your mind in that space, because that is kind of the direction things seem to be moving in. And also you have to make sure that your water is secured. So these are all the things that the homesteaders and the preppers and stuff have been talking about for years. But a lot of us have been hard-headed about it, and now they've got it on the fast track. So things that we thought were just stuff we were seeing in movies that might happen maybe out more, 30, 40, 50, 100 years out, are actually seeming to be coming down the pipeline very quickly. Okay, and that's what the dystopian movies and stuff have been showing us all this time. So, and they have to show us what they're going to do anyway. So a lot of that stuff was just that predictive programming and all of that. And they're always going to show you, what they've got coming down the pipeline, so that they feel like, I think it's because they feel like it absolves them of the karma of things, because they already told you what they were doing. And which, and at the end of the day, what do we even do about it outside of prepare ourselves and get out, and get as sovereign as we can, and go back to the earth. So that's kind of the vibes right now that I'm seeing, is that people are going to have to get really, really serious about surviving, what's coming. Because, even though you don't want to be in a survival mentality, the fact is they are going to be trying to really, really crack down and get a lot more control over people's lives. That's what people keep saying. You will own nothing and you will be happy. That is the mentality. That is the energy they're coming with. They want to take all of these the privately owned things, all of the possessions, all of the land, the properties. They're really, really coming for everything. Okay, that's why so much stuff is happening in the U.S. right now. They destroyed the cattle industry. They're destroying the farmers. They're switching out all of the real food with pretend food, right before people's eyes. They've infiltrated places that were thought to be safe spaces, like Whole Foods, where people thought they could at least go get some kind of quality food. I mean, I haven't liked Whole Foods in years, since the 2010s, personally. But, some people think that, at least we have Whole Foods, at least we have this, at least we have that. They're infiltrating those places. I saw a video, one of the preppers I watch does some cool videos where she shows people talking about their experience with food. Okay, sorry. Their experience with with the food, and they were showing how even when you go into Whole Foods now, you look on the packaging of everything in there, and it says contains bioengineered ingredients on everything in Whole Foods. So much for that being a safe space where you can get, healthy food and things like that. Don't nobody want to be eating that kind of Frankenstein shit. So, saying all that to say, folks are going to have to get serious. So like I was saying, if you are interested in moving somewhere that could offer maybe just at least buy you some time, look into the Balkans, look into, places where it will be easy for you to go and go into the countryside, maybe places that you're familiar with where you can go into the countryside and feel safe and feel good, and you can speak the language and get on the land and get to homesteading if you have the money to purchase. Also, maybe finding some of these communities that are on wolf.com and some of these global websites that place you in communities where you can go and work the land and drop right into a homestead situation, especially if they allow for long-term stays. Those are maybe some options for people, especially single people. I mean, that gets a little more complicated when you're talking about families. But right now, I just feel like we need to be getting in position. And that includes me, as much as I'm in, my favorite city. I get to live here in Brazil. It's amazing. But I'm also thinking about, okay, at a point we're going to have to shift, and we have to come out of this urban environment. It just is what it is right now, because they're moving fast with this stuff, y'all. They're going to be implementing these IDs here in a hot minute. And you have to have your trigger. You got to know, okay, now I'm triggered. Now I've got to make a move. What is your trigger point? What is the thing that needs to happen that the government, what announcement do they need to make? What is it that's going to motivate you to actually start putting a plan in motion for, whatever it is you want to do. I don't tell people to leave the U.S. and stuff because, at the end of the day, it might be just as safe to be out in the countryside there as anywhere else, because I understand that all of these governments are in cahoots, period. So it really, I can't say anywhere is going to be better than anywhere else. I would just say go towards the places that they are less developed. I am especially drawn to places like Kenya and stuff like that, Nairobi, but because I understand, kind of what a sellout type of government is supposed to have out there, and the fact that they are really into advancements, I'm assuming that they'll be jumping on any bandwagon that has to do with advancements and digital implementation and stuff, right along with, a lot of the Western countries. So I don't really have any trust that a place like that will be solid in these kind of times. So, you have to be thinking about all of these different things and put a plan A. Now, you have what you're doing, you have your plan B, you have your plan C. You literally need to have a plan B and C right now for you and your loved ones. As a mother, I can't just sit back and let stuff happen. I have to try to implement and put things in place, try to hedge, try to prevent things as much as I can. That's my role. So, I just suggest that for everybody. I hope everybody's having a beautiful Wednesday today. And I just wanted to say that. Okay, peace and love, y'all.